example of a project. We have a few minutes left for some discussion, and I actually had a question to my panelists here. I was listening to this interview, and I was wondering, now suppose, the Prime Minister of your country asks you and says, okay, I'm going to make you the Secretary of Education. What would you do? What would be the one thing you want to change, and maybe one thing you want to keep? Any thoughts?
We should go reverse order.
Reverse order. I appreciate it. It fits with your presentation, so.
I would make the curriculum way more flexible than it is. Like, for sure. Think about the Portuguese scenario and the Brazilian scenario. I'll try to bring this idea of liberal arts that usually have more in the high institutions in the US, not in the basic education in America, which is really bad compared to other countries as well. But being more flexibility and seeing how we can answer the demands of the students. Nobody's looking and nobody's hearing what the student wants, right? So what the youth is want for which type of education we want in our classrooms. So it's about the classes are boring and how to make more engaging. So I think giving more flexibility in the core curriculum for that, it's still meeting the expectations in national base, but giving more flexibility to a great way to start.
Okay, so more flexibility, more say of students to choose what they want, what kind of format you want to, maybe not just only dry lecturing.
Yeah, for sure. Not you can choose everyone and I don't know what I want, but really a more practical way to see that. Mm-hmm. So if you have a more technical approach, we can have a more technical education for you. If we have a more a humanitarian approach, we can have more humanitarian approach for you. So giving more flexibility of bring this school of the 17th century that we still have, yes, and say those are the 21st century skills that we do, that we need, to go beyond.
Okay, thank you. Bruno, what about you?
Thinking about this and the situation of education in Brazil, what I would do is first of all, we have just established one idea, is that Brazil actually doesn't invest that little amount of money in education. If you go to international averages and standards, it's okay. The problem is we lose too much money in the process. We don't have efficiency applying that money. We cannot read exactly what the market needs. What I would do is I would apply a solution that Milton Friedman proposed when he developed the voucher system. And actually, we have something like this in Brazil for universities. So what happens is that instead of the government actually running the schools and hiring teachers and stuff, the teachers, they would own the schools. And the government would pay for people to choose in which school they want to go to. So, for example, if I think that your schools may be better than Matthew's, nothing personal, I would apply my voucher to your school. And so we would have more effective schools. We have more, because if you're not really good, then I could move elsewhere. So that's what I would do.
I'm not familiar with the Brazilian situation, but if I look at the Dutch situation, in a sense that already happens because students vote for what they're going to study. So if they don't choose a certain university or a certain training, whatever, then the school doesn't get its students and it will be closed. It's happening.
Yeah,
so isn't that already happening, or is that different from how it's being financed in Brazil?
But I mean,
what's the difference between that situation?
In Brazil, for example, and I mean mainly basic schools, because that's when the person is really developing their senses and the appraisal for the studying habit and saying, okay, I can do that. They lose a lot of self-esteem in the process because we have a very bad public education system. If you separate Brazilian public education and private education and then compare the results in the international test, the PISA, you will find that the Brazilian private education averages maybe 15. But the Brazilian public education ranks more or less over 60. So the biggest problem we have is how the money is being invested in the public education. And we have too much others, how can I say this? We have too few teachers for the money we put in the system. And the teachers, they don't earn really a lot of money. And then we have a lot of programs like the school program, it's embedded with ideology. And so the school doesn't really teach us what the kid needs to learn. It teaches some kind of ideology. And that's because we have too much of the political process running the schools. So I would isolate that, and you would be able to do this on a personal level. Not like we will vote, and then if you don't like, you will have to settle because the three of us vote in a way. You could go and study yourself in the other university because you would have your voucher to do.
Good, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
I'll make my life easy and respond from the Dutch context, also since I'm sitting in a European conference. So in terms of what the Netherlands is doing well, clearly the Netherlands does a good job of instilling basic literacy. The new OECD education ratings which came out about 2 weeks ago placed the Netherlands 9th in the world. So for a tiny little country, that's pretty good going. I think when you're looking at creating systemic change, it's quite a subtle sort of skill. It's kind of like acupuncture, looking for that little spot where you can stick the needle in that's going to make the biggest difference. So I think there would be a need for quite a lot of really well thought out, well structured public engagement, bringing together stakeholders, getting a little bit of perspective seeking. With that said, I think that there are some clear points where change could happen. I think one of the most significant ones, and this doesn't only apply to the Netherlands, is in the space of assessment. I think changing testing changes everything in education. And I think we need to make a move towards tests that actually actively help people to learn and are part of a learning process, part of a generative cycle of learning, as opposed to just labeling and sifting people and just testing the degree to which they're able to retain knowledge. Even things like the National Intelligence Test, which is used in the Netherlands, which makes it a big part of the end of primary school, is incredibly outdated from a psychometric perspective. So I think that's one big place for change. And then I think also freedom of choice across Northern Europe in education is becoming more and more limited. And I think parents' right to choose the type of education that they want for their children is being limited in the Netherlands, and I would want to put some serious thinking into how we could work with that problem.
The thing you're saying about the tests, can you give us a better idea how we see it? I know that tests are very important, like the GMAT, which is internationally used. If you want to go to some kind of top business school, you need to have a certain score on the GMAT. Average grades are becoming more important, and you're referring to a different kind of testing. Can you give us a bit of a feel of what you're meaning with that kind of testing?
Sure. So what the GMAT by and large tests is a very limited set of skills and intelligences and a lot of knowledge retention. I think we would look at a test which actually requires people to operationalize their implicit knowledge network in the face of a real life problem. So that actually writing that test in and of itself requires them to do some learning. And then that we would actually offer targeted feedback around their development, around, for instance, a measure around the complexity of their thought on common model hierarchical complexity, something like that, but also targeted feedback around specific skills which are relevant to the domain of, let's say in this case, leadership decision making. So perspective seeking, perspective taking, perspective coordination, collaborative capacity, decision-making skills, things, contextual thinking. These are the things which people actually need to be able to do to succeed in the marketplace, not solve little logic puzzles.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We're nearing the end of the morning session, regretfully. I have a lot of questions I could ask these gentlemen, but I think that the one chance that I definitely get from all three presentations before the answers is this call for a broad sense of education. That we not just should, test, we are very good cognitively, training people, testing people, but we need much more, whether it's the values and the context and the kind of things that we're doing. And that is very much but at least hear from all three of you as a sort of commonality how important it is and how we view people as broad, that we are much more than that. I think that's a very important takeaway. So, first of all, help me thanking these gentlemen for their contribution. Lunch. There is lunch outside. There are at the tables, there are questions, I believe. Are there?
Yeah.
Yes. There are questions. So what it means is that if you don't know what to talk about, take one of the questions and talk about that one. So, but I think there is a question. I saw two hands raised. We have limited time, so yes.
Good morning, Mr. Tarkin. Anthony. I'll be as quick as possible at making at least one question. In my opinion, I think the better way to motivate children to study is through edutainment. Edutainment is a word that I've learned in a YouTube channel related to video games. And it's simply the mixture of two words, education and entertainment. There are various examples of computer games, video games, and with the case of nowadays, where people like to stuck their eyes on cell phones, smartphones and tablets, at least the people who program applications and games related to those platforms should be more worried to motivate this type of education. Another type of edutainment which I think is indispensable are museums. I think that museums are not only a place where people can go on a field trip and feel satisfied with having a walk, but also to learn something that they haven't learned. The problem is that governments really literally have no interest in motivating people to visit the museums. My parents work at museums at Sintra, on the other side of the mountain. Always complain about...
If I may, we really need to close, and I see there's one other gentleman.
I'll be fast.
I can only allow the other gentleman who has the mic, and then we really need to go.
Yes,
I'll
fit.
If you can just sort of like...
Yes, my parents complain about the people at the government not motivating children to be educated museums. And my question is, how to make children be motivated to visit museums to learn there, and for that to happen, how to motivate the politics to make that happen?
Okay, so, Matthew, you want to answer that question?
I think it's really important to create rich learning environments which engage all people in learning. At the same time, I think learning is a very, very natural thing. It's what human beings do. We shouldn't need to bribe children to learn with games, and we shouldn't need to try and coerce them in that way. Nobody needs to do that in order to get a baby to walk. It's a very natural, very pleasurable part of being human. So in short, I'd say the best way to get children to go to museums is make them attractive, make them available, and stop telling them that they have to.
Thank you.
Yeah, a small question. Hey, my name is Ilgeta, and I'm from the University of Porto. This was a very interesting conference. I just want to understand a little bit better what you were trying to tell us, Mr. Bruno Zaffari. You told us that the freer the market, the more opportunities we'll have, the better your life will be, something like that, right? Then, as the world gets an ever more freer market, why the gap between the richest and the poor just gets wider, and the wealth, instead of reaching new people, is ever more condensed in the 1% richest? You know, this is a fact. So I will just quote something that we saw there. Please, no bullshit.
inequality discussion rich nowadays. I know you probably are referring to Piketty's study maybe, or the media that followed it. But the thing is, and there's a number of studies that shows that even though the 1%, like multi-billionaires and stuff, they have the, how do I say it in English, like the net worth, like their patrimony, their net worth is big. If you look globally, the inequality is not rising, it's actually shortening because of the emerging middle class in the emerging markets, such as Brazil, such as China, such as India. So if you think maybe in one specific country, like, but what if Bill Gates has like $60 billion? And then you'd say, but he has 60 and he had like 50 before, and so he's getting more money. But the thing is that if you look globally, inequality is not rising, it's actually coming to a lower tense than it historically used to be. And it's not a bullshit. It has like huge amount of data to prove this.
Actually, I was thinking about saying that on a second evil, and also like think about like this way. I'm totally pro free market, like I study that, and also like the ideals. But I don't believe at all that private education is the solution for our problems in education. Especially in countries like Brazil and Portugal that have very strong states, and the only way to reach the poor, the only way to reach like the Amazon region, the only way to reach the north part of Portugal is through public education quality. So fix our public education be our priority. And like the vouchers ideas is really good, because that like makes sense, but like for small groups. And the idea of like reaching global policies and think like how we can build this idea of like education for all and not for few. I believe that like fixing public education will be like our main priority for that.
Okay, Juan?
We will agree to disagree. But the thing is that the public education is spending lots of money, and they're not delivering this because of inefficiencies given the nature of the government. But let's agree to disagree.
Yeah. Okay. As I see it, it's really, the topics is getting us, let's say, involved, let's put it that way. But I also think that I don't know if we think better with a filled stomach, but I think most of us would love that. So let's break for lunch. I would like to see you all back in your chairs by 2:30. So have a good lunch.